Hey everybody, it's Ian the Off Kilter Crafter. I hope you're having a great day today. It's hard to believe it, but it's already time for Clue 2 of Piazza. And looking at today's package, I am super excited to be using these fabrics. So let's go ahead and get started and put Clue 2 together. All right, I have my instructions for my large quilt. I have my color guide for San Marco, and then of course I have my clue packet too. Let's go ahead and open up this clue packet and see what's inside. Realized I had my instructions on the wrong side at first. It was actually the instruction side, not the what's in this packet side. Anyways, first up we have some triangles, and it looks like we have 16 small triangles of fabric A. We have 8 of fabric E small triangles. We have 16 of the small D triangles. We have 8 smaller squares of fabric C. Next, we have 4 large squares of F fabric, and honestly, the whole reason I wanted to do this colorway is because of this moon in the rainbow pattern. I absolutely love this fabric, and I can't wait to see how many times it ends up showing up in this pattern. So, you know, who knows? Might have a little, might have a lot. Now, per my instructions, I'm supposed to have 12 A triangles, larger A triangles, but I don't have any of those in this packet. I think they were accidentally sent to me in packet 1. Let me go grab those. All right, mystery is solved. If you were with me for clue number 1, you saw that I received 12 A triangles in that package that did not correspond with my instructions, and I was a little confused, didn't know exactly where they were supposed to go. Reached out to Cotton Cuts, and they actually were trying to figure it out as well. Things happen. It's totally cool. I'm glad I had them on hand and am able to put them together. But remember, guys, if you ever need help, always reach out. There's even a little information box here on every clue that says to reach out to Cotton Cuts by going to www.cottoncuts.com/pmq-support. And that way, if you have any problems missing any fabric or were sent the wrong pieces of fabric or whatever happens, they can help you using that link. So head over to that link and they will be able to help you out. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and take these pieces of fabric, put them on the table next to me, and we'll go ahead and get started. All right, starting off, it says that we are going to be making 4 of section 2. The instructions below tell you how to make all 4 sections at the same time. We're starting off with step number 1. It says to join a small triangle of A to each of the 4 sides of F. So we're going to just attach them on just like this, and it doesn't give us instructions on which sides need to happen first, so we're just basically going to put them on to all 4 sides of our square to form this diamond inside a square shape, and we're going to be doing that 4 times in total. I'm going to go ahead and take all this over to the sewing machine, and then I'll meet you back here when it's time to press all 4 out. All right, I have finished putting all 4 of those together, and I'm going to tell you, it felt a little weird doing this because my A fabric was actually overlapping. The first piece that I put on actually overlapped the edges of my F fabric. So it kind of felt weird, and I was having to kind of center my A fabric on my F fabric. And thankfully, you just got to trust the process because everything came out fairly well on my 4 pieces here, but it was a little nerve-wracking for me as I was starting to put it together because I was really afraid that I wasn't getting centered nicely, but I did. Everything looks good. I have good seam allowances on all of my points. I did use the method where I sewed the 2 across from each other first, and I came and pressed those out, and then I went back and I sewed these 2 on, and then I pressed those out. So that helped out a lot with my process and my creation of this block. So highly recommend doing that. But Otherwise, we have completed step number 1. Let's go ahead and move on to step number 2. All right, moving on to step number 2, it says to join a small triangle of E on the left and a small triangle of D on the right of a large triangle of A. So we're going to be making flying geese. If you're used to doing the puzzle mystery quilts, you are used to doing flying geese blocks. But we're going to go ahead and put it together like this. But pay attention because we're only going to be putting 4 together in this orientation. So don't just grab all your E and D triangles and just start going to town. Make sure that you're only doing 4 like this. I'm going to go ahead and take these over to the sewing machine and sew them together, and then I'll come back when it's time to press it all out. Okay, I've sewn all 4 of those, and now I'm pressing it out. I did go ahead and sew on my D fabric first, and then pressed, and then I went over and put my E fabric on, and now I'm pressing that out. Remember, we're pressing away from our A fabric, just like I'm doing right now, so go with the point of the A fabric. There we go, we have completed 4 of those. Let's go ahead and set them off to the side. All right, moving on to step number 3. This should feel very similar to what we just did, except we're reversing our E and D fabric. So it says to join a small triangle of D to the left and a small triangle of E to the right of a large triangle of A. So we're going to go ahead and put them on just like this. Same exact thing that we just did. We're just flipping up the D and E fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and take these over to my sewing machine. Remember, we're also only doing 4 of these, so don't go so happy and just start sewing everything together. We're only going to be sewing 4 of these. So I'm going to take these over to the sewing machine, and I'll come and meet you when it's time to press it out. Okay, here are the 4 that we did in reverse, basically. What we did in step number 2. I feel like I'm getting better at these flying geese. Slowly but surely, I'm learning. The more I do them, the better I get. I mean, isn't that true of everything? All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to step number 4. Okay, here we go for step number 4. It says to join a step 2 unit, which one is, okay, this is a step 2 to the left of step 1, and then join a step 3 unit to the right. So we're basically making a secondary pattern here. Isn't it fun how we can like make more bigger shapes? This is such a, sounds like such an elementary comment, but it's cool how we have taken our 3 blocks that we've made so far and combining them to make this bigger shape. It's a lot of fun when that happens, but anyways, I digress. We're going to go ahead and do this 4 times to all the pieces that we have so far. I'm going to sew all 4 of them and then come back here when it's time to press it out. Okay, I have sewn all 4 of those together, and now I'm pressing out from my center F block and just pressing it out like you do. I lost a few points along the way, but that's okay. It's like, whose line is it anyways? The points don't matter. Again, we're going for a finished quilt top, not a perfect quilt top. Okay, so there we go. We've finished with step number 4. Let's move on to step number 5. Okay, we have our remaining triangles of our D fabric and our A fabric, and it says to join a small D triangle to the left and right of a large triangle of A. Again, same thing that we did in both steps 2 and 3, just this time using only D fabric on left and right. And then we'll come back when it's time to press it out. We're going to be making 4 of these in total, so let's go do that. All right, I have finished pressing. I honestly forgot to turn on the camera while I was finishing pressing, but y'all know how to do the flying geese by now. I have 4 of those for step 5. We're done with step 5. Let's move on to step number 6. Okay, moving on to step number 6, it says to join a square of C to each side of step 5 unit. So we're just going to be adding on these squares onto either side just like this. We're going to do this 4 times in total. Super easy, so I'm going to come back when it's time to press it all out. All right, I have sewn all 4 of those together. We're pressing out towards our C squares, so away from the center of this row. And there we go, just like that. And I did randomize. I talked about randomization in my last video, but if you'll notice, what I've done is I've kind of gone back and forth. This one has the pattern kind of going vertically. This one has the pattern going horizontally. This is just something that I do because you never know which way these clues are going to end up in the quilt. So I tend to just randomize so that way when the final quilt comes together, there's no direct pattern. So I hope that makes sense. All right, let's go ahead and move on to step number 7. I don't think this is a big shock to everyone. I think everyone saw this coming, but basically what we're going to do in step 7 is we're going to join a step 6 unit above a step 4 unit, and we're going to do that 4 times. So we're just basically, oh, I love how this looks. I love the colors of my colorway. I am so excited about this. All right, I'm going to take these over to the sewing machine and sew them together. All right, as you can see, I have sewn all those together. I am pressing my last one here. Something that I noticed that was interesting is when we were attaching the top portion, so step 6 to, what was that, step 4? Yeah, step 4. It's interesting because both pieces have the pressing in the same direction, and I thought that I was going to be able to nest my seams up here along this seam, but there must be some reason why they didn't do it that way. So I lined them up the best that I could. They're not perfect, but again, we're not going for perfection, and there's got to be a reason for that. Probably my guess, if I had to take a guess, is because, ooh, this flipped up the pressing accidentally. Anyways, my guess is because of these corner or these points. I think if we had pressed them inwards, it would have affected how these points came out in the long run, because they lie nice and flat when you're on this side. They lie nice and flat, and so I assume because of the way that this block is assembled, I'm kind of assuming that's why. Not really sure. That's just a guess. But anyway, this is now complete. We have 4 of these that look just like this. I'm going to label them as clue 2 or section 2, whichever way you label your clues. And we are ready for next month and clue number 3.